Well, nearly 40 million Americans are impacted by migraine. And today we are joined by the former co-host of The Doctors, Judy Ho, as well as the chair of the American Migraine Foundation, Dr. Larry Newman. Folks, there is a connection between migraine and mental health. I was not aware of this, but thank you so much for joining us so we can talk about this connection today.
Thank you so much for having us.
I see here that depression is almost 2 times more prevalent and anxiety 2 to 5 times more prevalent in people with a migraine than those without. Is this true?
Absolutely true. So the recent survey conducted by the American Migraine Foundation of 1,100 people with migraines found that there is this bidirectional relationship between migraine condition and mental health. And most people with migraine, in fact, 77% of them worry about the stigma, the negative perception of talking about how migraine and mental health might go together. And it's preventing them from having honest conversations with their doctors about how to manage these conditions better.
My goodness, yeah, it's such an interesting connection. Doctor, I know that you work with many patients that suffer from migraine. Maybe you can help us further understand this connection between migraine and mental health.
So many of my patients suffer from both migraines and a condition like depression or anxiety. Those are the most common ones, but there are other ones as well. And oftentimes they don't even talk about their migraine with me. So they're talking about the depression symptoms, they're talking about stressors, but then we'll hit on something like these debilitating headaches. And what I want to understand is it just headaches or is it migraine, which is so much beyond headaches that Dr. Newman can really highlight the difference between just a normal headache and what is a migraine. But one of the most important differences is that this is not something that you can just will yourself away or maybe just take an over-the-counter Tylenol and hope it goes away. This is something that can stay with you for hours and even sometimes days. But what happens with patients is that they're afraid that people think that they're just making this up. They're exaggerating their symptoms. Maybe they're saying they have a migraine to get out of their responsibilities. And so then it prevents them from actually making that connection and talking about it further, which of course, if you're not telling your doctor and they don't know that this is what you're dealing with, then they're not able to really help you learn about the effective treatment options that we do have today.
Wow, it is really complex, and you have this kind of stigma with both sides, with the mental health and with the migraine, that can probably prevent patients from really getting to a deeper understanding of what it is that it's going on. What I'm hearing from you is that it's kind of a cycle, or it can be, that one condition can affect the other.
Right.
That's definitely the case, and unfortunately, many people, as Dr. Judy just said, many people don't want to bring up either condition to their doctor, and without open communication, there's really no chance of it just going away or willing it away.
And doctor, would you say that if someone can manage their mental health, and I of course use the word manage, that could then in turn help with their migraine?
Right. Well, one of the big take-homes from this American Migraine Foundation survey was that migraine and mental health really significantly impact upon each other. So it's really important that people who live with this disabling condition, migraine, understand that if they improve their mental health, they'll have better outcomes for their migraine, and just the opposite, vice versa, is true as well.
And to both of you folks, if you could touch on a little bit more of the results of that survey, I think it's really interesting.
Sure. I'll take part of it, Judy, and then you can take some of the rest. So, besides the stigma, there was some alignment, which was very, very helpful. So nearly all of the healthcare professionals who were surveyed, and almost 90% of the people who lived with migraine, told us that they believed that their mental health would benefit if their migraine was under better control. Mm-hmm. Importantly, now we heard that they didn't want to talk to their doctors, but both those doctors and more than half, almost all of the doctors and more than half of the people living with migraine told us that they felt their doctor, their healthcare provider, needed to be flexible in tailoring their treatment. They didn't want a cookie-cutter approach, but they wanted to be looked at as an individual, and that the treatment, whether migraine medicine or non-medical therapies, be flexible and
Yes.
address that individual person.
Doctor, I apologize. We've run out of time, folks. I want to suggest that if you would like more information on this topic, you can visit the AmericanMigraineFoundation.org.